There's something that gets missed in wound care more often than it should. Not because clinicians don't care, not because the knowledge isn't out there, but because mobility, the way a patient moves or doesn't move, rarely makes it onto the wound care assessment form. And yet it shapes almost everything about how a wound heals. That's what this video is about. For those who don't know me, my name is Dr. Cassandra Voltaire. I'm a wound care physician. I've managed hundreds of wounds across acute care, long-term care, and outpatient settings. I've presented at the Symposium on Advanced Wound Care. I'm a certified wound care physician, and I've served as an expert witness on wound care litigation cases, which means I've spent a lot of time looking at what went wrong and tracing it back to decisions that seemed reasonable at the time. This will be a real conversation about something that affects your patients right now. And here's the question I want you to sit with as we go through this. If mobility is this important to healing, why are so many wound care plans written as if the patient never moves at all? We'll come back to that. Let's start with what mobility actually does in the context of wound healing, not the textbook version, the real version. When tissue is injured, the body launches a repair process that depends on blood flow. Oxygen has to reach the wound bed. Nutrients have to arrive. Waste products have to leave. That entire exchange happens through the vascular system, and the vascular system responds to movement. When a patient moves, even small movements, shifting weight, flexing a limb, walking a short distance, they're doing something that no dressing, no debridement, no topical agent can fully replicate. They're driving circulation. They're reducing the sustained pressure that collapses capillaries. They're preventing the kind of tissue stasis that turns a stage 2 into something much worse. Immobility does the opposite. It doesn't just slow healing, it actively works against it. Prolonged pressure occludes blood flow. Edema accumulates without the pumping action of muscle contraction. Skin becomes fragile. Tissue that was borderline becomes necrotic. The part most people misunderstand is this: mobility isn't a comfort measure, it's a physiological intervention. And when we treat it as an optional, something we'll address after the wound is better, we've already made a clinical error. Here's a mistake I see most often. A wound is identified. A care plan is written. The dressing is chosen carefully. The frequency is documented. And then somewhere in the handoff between wound assessment and daily care, the mobility piece disappears. The patient is repositioned on a schedule. Every 2 hours is documented, but no one is asked whether they can reposition themselves. Between staff visits, no one has assessed whether they have the strength, the cognition, the pain tolerance, or the motivation to shift their weight independently. A wound is identified. A care plan is written. The dressing is chosen carefully. The frequency is documented. And then somewhere in the handoff between wound assessment and daily care, the mobility piece disappears. The patient is repositioned on a schedule every 2 hours as documented, but no one has asked whether they can reposition themselves. Between staff visits, no one has assessed whether they have the strength, the cognition, the pain tolerance, or the motivation to shift their weight independently. No one has looked at whether their current positioning actually offloads the wound or just moves them from one pressure point to another. Physiologically, what happens is predictable. Scheduled repositioning helps, but it doesn't eliminate the problem. If a patient spends 22 hours out of 24 in a position that loads the wound site, 2 hours of offloading won't compensate. The tissue doesn't work on a schedule. It responds to cumulative load. The consequences show up in a few ways. The wound stalls. It looks clean, it's being dressed correctly, but it doesn't progress. Or it progresses and then regresses. 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and no one can explain why. Or it deteriorates despite what looks like appropriate care, and suddenly you're in a conversation about whether the standard of care was met. I've seen that last scenario play out in litigation. A patient develops a deep tissue injury. The documentation shows regular dressing changes, appropriate product selection, repositioning every 2 hours, but no one assessed functional mobility. No one documented whether the patient could or couldn't move independently. No one adjusted the plan when the patient's mobility status changed after a procedure. The wound was treated, but the patient wasn't. So what do you do first? Before you choose a dressing, before you stage the wound, before you write a single order, assess mobility, not as a checkbox, as a clinical question with real implications. What is this patient's baseline? Can they reposition independently? Do they have the upper body strength to lift and shift? Are they ambulatory? And if so, how far and how often? Is their mobility limited by pain, by fear of falling, by cognitive impairment, or by contracture? And then, this is the part that gets skipped. Does the wound care plan reflect what you found? If a patient cannot reposition independently, the plan needs to account for that. More frequent staff repositioning, a pressure redistribution service that actually matches their weight and risk profile, clear documentation of why certain positions are contraindicated, a conversation with physical therapy about about what's realistic and what's achievable. If a patient can move but isn't moving because of pain, because of depression, because no one told them it mattered, that's a different problem with a different solution. Pain management, education, encouragement that's specific and grounded, not generic. The threshold question is simple. Does this patient's current level of mobility support healing or work against it? Everything else follows from that. There are also signs you can spot without any equipment. Look at the wound bed during your assessment. A wound that's healing in a patient with adequate mobility tends to show consistent granulation tissue. So pink, moist, filling in from the edges. The parawound skin is stable. The wound is tracking in one direction. A wound in a patient with compromised mobility often looks different. The granulation tissue may be pale or dusky, reflecting poor perfusion. You may see maceration at the edges from moisture that isn't being managed well because the patient isn't moving enough to allow airflow and drainage. You may see new areas of discoloration like purple or maroon near the wound or at adjacent bony prominences, which tells you the pressure problem is broader than the wound you're treating. Edema is another sign. A limb that's consistently swollen, particularly in a patient who's been immobile, is a limb where the wound healing environment is compromised. The interstitial fluid that accumulates with immobility increases the distance oxygen has to travel from capillary to cell. It's not dramatic. It doesn't look like an emergency, but it slows everything down. And then there's the wound that looks fine on Tuesday and worse on Friday with no clear explanation. That pattern, inconsistent progression, unexplained regression, can be a mobility story. Something changed. The patient had a procedure and was on bed rest. They had a fall and became more fearful of moving. They were transferred to a different unit and the repositioning schedule didn't follow them. These signs mean proceed with caution. They mean the wound care plan needs to be looked at again, not just the wound. One thing that gets misunderstood is the relationship between mobility and wound pain. The assumption is often that movement causes pain. Pain is bad, therefore we should minimize movement. And there's a version of that logic that's somewhat correct. You don't want a patient bearing weight on a wound that can't tolerate it, and you don't want forced movement that causes tissue trauma. But the broader conclusion that immobility protects the wound is wrong, and it's a conclusion that causes real harm. Pain with movement is information. It tells you something about the wound, about the tissue, about what the patient can tolerate. It's a reason to assess more carefully, to involve physical therapy, to consider whether the pain is coming from the wound itself or from the surrounding structures. It's not a reason to stop moving. The safer approach is to treat the pain so that the movement becomes possible rather than to eliminate movement because pain exists. That distinction matters clinically. It also matters from a documentation standpoint. If a patient's mobility declined and no one addressed why, that's a gap in care. I want to tell you about a patient I saw a few years ago. I'll keep the details general, but the clinical picture was specific. She was in her late 70s. She had a sacral pressure injury, a stage 3. It was a clean wound bed, appropriate dressing in place. She'd been in a long-term care facility for about 6 weeks. The wound had been present for 4 of those weeks and hadn't changed much in either direction. When I assessed her, the wound looked reasonable, but when I asked her to shift her weight so I could examine the parawound skin, she couldn't do it. Not because she was paralyzed, she had some functional movement, but because she was in pain. She was deconditioned and no one had worked with her on repositioning as an active skill. She was being repositioned by staff, but she wasn't participating in it. We changed the plan. We got physical therapy involved. We addressed her pain more aggressively. We spent time with her and with the staff on what independent weight shifting looked like and why it mattered. We changed her surface as well. 4 weeks later, the wound had reduced by more than half. What clicked for me in that case wasn't the wound. It was the realization that the wound care plan had been written around the wound, not around the patient. She had capacity that wasn't being used, and the wound was paying for it. But here's what a mobility-informed wound care plan actually looks like in practice. Assess functional mobility at the time of wound assessment and reassess it whenever the patient's condition changes. Document what you find, not just limited mobility, but what specifically is limited, why, and what the implications are for the wound. Match the pressure redistribution surface to the patient's actual weight, mobility level, and the wound location. A reactive surface for a patient who can reposition independently is different from what you need for a patient who cannot. Involve physical therapy early, not when the wound has stalled. At the beginning, PT can assess what's realistic, set goals, and work on the functional mobility that supports healing. Treat pain as a barrier to mobility, not as a reason to avoid it. If a patient isn't moving because of pain, address the pain. Educate the patient. Tell them why movement matters. Be specific. So shifting your weight for 30 seconds every hour helps blood flow reach your wound is more useful than try to move around. Document the mobility plan as part of the wound care plan. If something changes, like a hospitalization, a procedure, a fall, a change in cognition, update the documentation. That continuity matters clinically and it matters legally. And don't treat repositioning schedules as a substitute for functional mobility assessment. They're not the same thing. If you're watching this and feeling the weight of how much there is to track, the wound, the patient, the documentation, the team, the family, I want to acknowledge that wound care is genuinely complex. The decisions you're making at the bedside have real consequences, and the support for making those decisions well isn't always there. That's part of why I created the Wound Care Circle. It's a community for clinicians who want to think through cases, ask questions, and stay current without wading through vendor content or oversimplified protocols. We do weekly guidance, case breakdowns, and real-world discussion. If that sounds useful, the link is below. Let's keep going. When mobility is addressed well, healing looks different. The wound bed stays consistently pink. Granulation tissue fills in steadily. The parawound skin remains stable. The wound tracks in one direction, smaller, shallower, cleaner, without the regression that characterizes a stalled wound. The patient feels it too. Movement that was painful becomes less as the wound improves and as deconditioning is addressed. There's a feedback loop that works in your favor when you get the mobility piece right. And from a systems perspective, from the perspective of audit, litigation, and care quality, a wound that heals is a wound that doesn't become a case. The documentation that supported the outcome is documentation that reflects a complete clinical picture, not just a dressing change record. That's what good wound care looks like. Not perfect, not textbook, but complete. Before you move on from this video, here are 5 things worth looking at the next time you assess a wound. Is the patient able to reposition independently, and does the care plan reflect that accurately? Is the wound progressing consistently, or is there a pattern of regression that might be explained by mobility? Is there edema in the affected limb that isn't being addressed as part of the wound care plan? Has physical therapy been involved? And if not, is there a clinical reason why? Has the patient been told specifically why movement matters for their wound? Noticing these things is only half the story. The other half is what you do with what you find and how you document it in a way that protects the patient and reflects the care you actually provided. So watch this next video where I cover documentation in wound care, what it needs to include, and where the gaps most often appear. Stay informed and heal well.